Hello and welcome back to All for United. Got a very exciting show for you today. I'm not muted either to start, so that's always a positive sign. We're starting on the right foot, but got a very exciting show for you today on a day where you probably can't be that excited. Going to be talking about the pre-season game of Man United's under-23s losing to QPR. I think we'll say that to save a little bit of face. But yeah, got a brilliant panel for you lined up, and we'll be discussing the game straight after this. If I can get it loaded up. Oh, yeah.
Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Wow, would you look at that? Everyone's here now. How magic is that? Third time lucky. Next time, Connor, I could see you laughing at the bottom. I will get it right at some point. But yeah, guys, brilliant to have you on board. Got a brilliant panel lined up for you today. So how are you all doing?
Good. It's the weekend, isn't it? So got to be good.
Yeah, I suppose that plays its part. Well, when you're an unemployed student like me, it makes no difference at all. But you know, that's just one of the joys of being young, I suppose. But yeah, we're going to cover a bit of a dismal defeat, shall we say, in pre-season. Started off well with a dominating win over Derby, but you know we've gone on a pretty quick decline. So we'll start on a positive note, Shuki. I'm not sure if you managed to catch the game, but did you see any positives that came out of it?
Yeah, I think there were just very, very barely, sparsely some positives. It's good to see Elanga is continuing to be a good potential youngster that's probably going to make it into, or at least be in the pipeline to feed the first team. So that's a positive. I think it's good that we're seeing early where Matic is, because for Matic, he's the main reason why we might think we might not need a defensive midfielder this season. So this game kind of teases that out. It teases that out even more for Ollie, for the recruiting team, Mortalk and Fletcher, and the entire board. That look, Sancho is great. Varane might be even better. But what we really, really need is defensive midfielder. I think Garner was in the game at some point, I believe. And we just don't have that. That's one big missing piece. That's the reason why energetic teams like QPR in preseason depends on relative fitness levels of both teams. But either way, QPR shouldn't really be steamrolled by QPR. But that's when you don't have a controller or defensive midfielder. Teams like QPR can come in with just enthusiasm and get wins like this, even if it's just preseason.
Yeah. I mean that's fair enough. Obviously, the midfield's not set in stone at all, is it? I think we saw the first inkling of what Ollie's trying to do with his new formation, but I don't think there's the players there to make it work yet. But Connor, I'll come to you. Any positives at all from today?
I think, like it's already been said, I think Elanga played well. The away fans, as always, top quality again. Other than that, I'm struggling to try and find. I think Tom Heaton looks very strong, if I'm being totally honest. Going into next season, obviously we don't know whether Henderson's going to be fully back, and obviously De Gea, we don't know what's going on with him. So there's that. So Tom Heaton looked well, or looked good. Sorry. I think. Do you remember? I think I said it yesterday on the show the other day that Lingard could play a part in the midfield three, whether that's on the left of the three. And I think we saw again today what he could offer. With a proper defensive midfielder behind him. I thought he was brilliant today. The first goal was actually very well worked. Greenwood into Plestri and laid off to Lingard, who put it nice finish. So I think that I'm really trying to scrape the barrel here, but I think Lingard had a good game, and I think he's proven that he maybe can have some influence going into next season, because there wasn't many other players so far this preseason that have shown that. Elanga, again, we need to be careful though, because he is a very young player, and I think a lot of people are getting on the hype a bit too early. He scored a couple of goals, he's playing well, but I've seen some people saying, let's get him into the starting squad next season. No. Let's not get ahead of ourselves there. But yeah, Lingard, the away fans, and Tom Heaton look strong, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll come to you, Charlie. Obviously, it was a young team. There's a lot of members of the under-23 squad in there. to compete in the way we did, I suppose the scoreline would suggest we got battered. But looking at the stats afterwards, they were pretty even. I suppose you could call it a competitive game. Does that show a bit of promise?
It's a tough one for me because I value pre-season games more than a lot of others do. I think that I think a pre-season game is not the be-all and end-all. I think that a pre-season game is obviously an important sort of fitness point for the players, but also with the way that our squad's looking at the moment, we're not going to get sort of more than half of the team in for a game before the Everton game, from what I've seen. So for this game, the Brentford game, and then I think is it Preston? I think we've got, haven't we, as well to come. So I think for the next 2 games after this, we're still not going to have sort of our strongest sort of team. So what we're going to be seeing is we're going to be seeing some of the lads that have played today still playing those in those games. And what would worry me is that these players like Bruno, Rashford, sorry, maybe not Rashford, obviously with his operation, but I think Martial and Van der Beek are back, aren't they? So Martial, Van der Beek, Bruno are going to come back, and they're going to play alongside players that are maybe lacking a bit of confidence. And I think that could be a problem. I think the way we ended last season was obviously very, very poor. And I think we need to make sure that this pre-season isn't poor as well, because whether anybody likes it or not, it does make a difference. And confidence is a big, big thing in football. And now I know that a lot of the players that played today aren't going to start the league games. But at times it was disgraceful, the amount of sort of the way that QPR, I think the stats deceive a bit. I think QPR were much the better side for a lot of the game. I think the midfield, we could talk about a new CDM all we like, but Matic and Pereira are good enough to sort of control some more of that game than they did. And I just thought at times the goals that QPR scored, there was just no closing down. The basics of football, Wan-Bissaka looked, I just don't know. I don't know what was wrong with him. The positional play was horrific at times. It really was. Positives, Tom Heaton was one of the only ones that I think could be happy. I don't think that Tom Heaton is as far down the pecking order as many think. I think he could. I don't think he's that far behind Dean Henderson, in all honesty. I think from what I've seen of both keepers in the last 2-3 years in the Premier League, there isn't that much between them in terms of their actual reflex and saving ability. I think Tom Heaton's proved, hasn't he, the amount of good games he's had for Burnley against us, what he can do. What else? Elanga, of course, scores. Probably should have had a couple more, but he kept going, got his goal. But yeah, other than that, I was very, very disappointed, mostly by there seemed to be a bit of a lack of effort and desire at times, and that's a bit of a problem. These players are players that are trying to sort of prove that they should be going on loan, or they want to show to other clubs, this is what I can do. And, Jesse Lingard did that half. Who would take Andreas Pereira, Brandon Williams? Who's going to take those players after performances like that? Just very, very poor. Against a QPR side, I don't know too much about them, but I think did they finish ninth, I think, last season or something around there in the Championship? And I think they've got a decent team, but I think we got played around a lot of times that we were chasing. But yeah, it was poor for me, and I feel sorry for the fans that went. They haven't been to a game, obviously the Derby game last week, but other than that, we haven't been able to go to a game for a long time, and that's the performance they get given, travelling down to London. So not great at all, bit shameful to be honest, but it's a pre-season game, but we've got to get going against Brentford. That'll be a tough game on Wednesday nights.
Yeah. I mean, we can end the show now. Charlie's covered all the positives, all the negatives. Cut it short. We'll all go home. But it's a good point that Stu's raised. I didn't really read the point. I just wanted to demonstrate how proper wicked his profile picture was. Other than that, really. But Hammer, have you got any other positives you can pick out of that performance at all?
Well, picking up positives, no, probably not. There was just some of the young guys like Elanga that the guys were saying who showed that he has something there, right? So I think he did well. My issue was more so with the defense, and kind of going off what Charlie said. I don't agree with everything, and the main reason is that I'm not too stressed about it is because kind of off of what he said as well, or he said he was stressed because these players are supposed to be showing that they want to go out on loan and things like that. In terms of our season coming up, I'm not stressed because the players, 3/4 of the players who are playing today are players who aren't going to be that much involved. What also might not even be here by the time the season starts. But the places that I was worried in terms of, again, going off, you want to say people who have something to prove, was 3/4 of that back four. I know Wan-Bissaka didn't look great, but I'll be honest, out of all of our starting 11, in terms of what we need from him, I think he'll be all right by the time the season starts rolling around, or hopefully at least by the time the Everton game starts rolling around. But it was Tuanzebe, Mengi, and Williams that I just was really disappointed with. They looked off the pace. They looked flat-footed. They looked afraid to step in for a tackle, afraid to close down, and just out of position a lot. And if you want to talk about people who have something to prove, right, Tuanzebe is starting to get on that fence on whether or not we're going to set him out on loan or potentially say, okay, maybe you didn't really take your chance when you had a time frame to take it. Mengi, the last show I was on, I heard people saying he might, or last couple shows I watched as well, I've seen people say he might be the one to take Tuanzebe's spot if he doesn't work out. And Williams at this point has been in the first team for a little while, and now we're talking about setting him on loan and get some playing time. The three of them had something to show and something to prove, whether it means taking a spot into the first team or whether that means, from Mengi's point of view, getting more time and opportunities into the first team. And none of them looked like they were ready, and at times they looked scared to take a step in or to, go on a tackle or close somebody down. So the positives were very little, and that's where my issues were with this game.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Quickly before we move on to the negatives, then I see there's quite a few people watching. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I suppose we won't always be this miserable, but just to round off the positives, I wanted to pick up on something you said before the show, Connor, about the fans that went. Do you want to sort of elaborate on the point you made?
Yeah, I mean, I see Andrew's in the comments. Andrew was there, so I'm sure he can vouch for it more than I can. Obviously, I know Benny was there as well today. The fact that, I think Charlie said this as well, fans haven't been in stadiums for so long, and it's so good. The United away end is the best away fans in the world, in my opinion, anyway. So you see the reaction after the fourth goal goes in. Non-stop chants, still love for the team and love for the manager and everything else. So you wouldn't get that at any other club. I'm sorry, your team concedes, you're not getting that elsewhere. So it's just good to see. After the last 18 months we've had with no fans and hearing the fake crowd noises on the TV, it's just brilliant to see a proper United away end again. And I know it was only a couple of thousand, but you wait till the new Premier League season starts. It's just. Yeah, I just had to mention it, and I'm sure Andrew, who's in the comments, can vouch for it more than I can. I'm actually quite jealous, Andrew, that you were there. But yeah, it's just brilliant to see it again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice to know that even when the team aren't performing, that the fans are. But it's the moment you four all turned up for. You get to rant about the negatives now. I'll come to you first, Chuki. What went wrong today?
I mean, it could be a series of things. First of all, I just in general, I don't think you bring out the heavy artillery for what basically was a run out. Most of these players that have to prove themselves, we don't know what's going on in the background. I think at this stage in the game, most of them know that, I'm not going to be here. I'm going out for loan. There's no. I don't know that we had that many players in this lineup that were on the cusp of whether they're going or not going. I think most of them are clearly going, and some of them are clearly staying. So there's no real incentive to, do too much in this game, other than you have the Manchester United badge on your kit. The negatives is, one of the big negatives is that when you look at the team sheet and you see around Wan-Bissaka, you start wondering about the depth of the team. Because any other team, like City wouldn't start early preseason game with Walker. That's not going to happen. It just shows that we don't have anyone there. And the fact that he looks out of pace based on the workload he had last season, I think that's fair enough. I think we really need to find a credible challenger to that position the same way we found basically a Telles to a Shaw. We need to do the same kind of thing with our Bissaka. Another negative, big negative to Twanzebe, or Twanzebe, whatever the pronunciation is. He's one we've been looking at. They've been, kind of trying to highlight his profile as being a leader, as a future captain, maybe. He's had some very, very solid performances on, in high-profile games, and he's had some high-profile mistakes in games as well. So he's a mixed bag. I think at this point, I'm sure he's pretty much settled that he has to go. He has to go out for loan. I don't think this was the game he was going to come in and show. He was going to be a credible challenger to Lindelof or Bailly or something like that. I don't think. Williams, someone mentioned Williams again. That's another, it looks like he's undercooked, just like Twanzebe. I think Williams also had high visibility performances a couple of seasons ago, and it looks like he's receded in this current setup. That's somebody I know was probably not on the cup. He just needs to go out on alone. So whether he's running out there saying that, look, I don't want to injure myself, or I'm not fully here. I'm waiting on, discussions to settle on where I'm going to go. Maybe that's where his head is. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not an insider. Who knows? Greenwood, I would say, is a negative. I think Greenwood is somebody we should look at. We should, keep an eye on, because he withdrew from the English team saying that, look, I was injured. I'm exhausted. We want to see what his energy levels are going into the season. That might be, that to me is a watch item for me. I'm very, very concerned about our goalkeeper situation. I don't understand the Heaton, Henderson, De Gea axis. I really don't. That really needs to be sorted out quickly. To me, that's a negative. I think that, the result is a negative. Most of it is a negative, but I do not support, like throwing a heavy artillery. You don't shoot ducks with bazookas here, right?
Oh, where do we go from there? You just topped off the show perfectly. Connor, unlucky. I'm passing it over to you. You've got to follow that up.
The one thing, okay, I'll start with this then. I've seen actually more people talking about an overreaction than people actually overreacting, to be honest. There's been more people saying, oh, look at the overreaction that's going to happen now we've lost. But I haven't seen that much, I've got to be honest. There's been, like I said, more people actually talking about an overreaction than actually people doing it. So that's my first point. And also, yes, it's only pre-season, and in the grand scheme, it doesn't really matter. But if you're not allowed to criticize, why are we watching it? We may as well just not bother watching it, and it's just a dead rubber game. We're allowed to. Fans are allowed to criticize whatever whatever match it is. Otherwise, you may as well not watch it. So that's my first point. I think I'm not going to go into every single negative at the minute, but I think definitely the backline, as I'm sure everyone's going to mention. And I think the worrying thing is, it doesn't matter who we seem to play there; it's the same problem. Particularly the one area that I will highlight is the very deep cross from the wide angles, and it seems to be Wan-Bissaka's side more often than not, but it's also happening on the other side as well. We saw I think it was the first goal where Mengi got caught out. I know Wan-Bissaka could have got tighter. It was a poor pass from Pereira early on, but that seems to be happening a hell of a lot. It was happening a lot in the Derby game. It happened a lot last season, so this is nothing new. Tuanzebe, I think, is the big one. He's 24 in November. So we need to make a decision now. Mengi's got 4 years on him. So are we going to keep Axel around, or are we going to send him out on loan again? Will that actually benefit him going into next season? He's already been out on loan at Villa. People thought he was ready. He's shown it at times. That PSG game sticks out, So it's going to be a big chance for him. He's been very kind of underwhelming in the first couple of games. But again, it's 2 games, Derby and QPR. So we'll just have to see how we are against Brentford. I'm assuming it's going to be a similar kind of team. There's not going to be too many of the heavy hitters coming back for that game, if any. So, yeah, it's just basic errors, I think, is the one negative to take away. It's not an overreaction because it's been happening last season as well. I said this is not a new thing. It's whoever's in that back line. It's the same positional errors. So I think that'll be the one negative I'll start on. It's defensive positional errors for me, and it's just avoidable. Like I said, we made their strikers look like the best strikers in the world today, and we do that to a lot of teams.
Yeah, I can't argue with that either. Well, Charlie, I'll come to you. I know you're going to have a lot of points to make, but I'll start you off on this one. So I want to ask, this pre-season, we've been talking for a couple of months now about how promising this youth academy is and the quality of players that we have in there. Are you sort of disappointed that they don't seem to quite be taking the chance? I get Shortieri and Palistri have 4 goal involvements between them so far, but other than that, are you sort of worried by the lack of promise that's being showed?
Well, I always say you have to judge a player over a whole season. And I'll be totally truthful. I don't watch too much of the under-23s. I've watched a bit of them. But a lot of the players that are played in there, I can't judge them off 2 games. It's just not right. It's just like, you cannot judge Man United just on today's game. What you can do is make an assessment of, as Connor rightly said, basic errors that have been happening under Ollie's tenure defensively. But yeah, in terms of the youngsters, I've got no worries really at all. I think it's very, very difficult in these circumstances to come in and play a 45-minute game. They're playing along with other youngsters as well. It's just all a bit mishmashed about. I don't really expect them to produce anything special. So no, I'm not worried about the youngsters at all. Just let them go out on loans. Let them play for the under-23s. I don't want to see any youngsters coming into the first team unless they're going to get proper minutes. Like Greenwood has been handled very, very well, in my opinion. I think he's been used well by Ollie. I think he's done well with Mason Greenwood. I think he handled the situation well when Greenwood had the incident when he lost his friend to suicide, and when he had the incident with Phil Foden playing for England, with the incident with the I think it was in Iceland, or I can't remember exactly where it was, but they had the incident, didn't they, where they breached the regulations. And I think Ollie handled Greenwood very well from that. And I think I don't think there's one youngster that can come in right now into the Man United team that will really play. So I would just say, I think Ahmad obviously is the one that I'd keep, but everybody else I'd say loan deals or under 23. So yeah, I'm not too interested in bringing youngsters through unless we're going to actually give them the proper time on the pitch. So yeah, I'm not worried at all about that. I think that's fine. In terms of the general performance, though, Connor is right. There's been some basic errors that have kept happening on and on. Let's hope that Eric Ramsey, the new coach that's come in, can obviously work with these players. Wan-Bissaka is the main problem for me. I actually think, everybody says he's very good defensively. Well, he actually isn't. I know he's very good one-on-one, but positional wise, he is quite poor actually. If you actually watch him, I think he's not. I think he's actually better going forward than people think, and he's not as good defensively as people think. So I think people get a little bit twisted over. I'm not saying Wan-Bissaka's fantastic going forward, but I think on the ball going forward, he's not as bad as a lot of people make out, and I think defensively is not as good as people make out, because people forget that one-on-one defending is only just a small part of your defensive game. Positioning is key. So yeah, Wan-Bissaka, I would be getting it if I was Ollie tomorrow morning. I'd be saying to it. Well, I would have said it months ago, but I would have said, right, Eric Ramsey, your job in the next, one of your main jobs building up to this season is to speak to Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and we need to coach him and we need to help him with his defensive positioning at the back post, because that's a big issue. So that would be the first thing I'd say. In terms of the general performance, even one of my favourites, Nemanja Matic, was very poor today. He played very well against Derby last week, but he was very poor today, giving the ball away too easy. I thought the 4-3-3 that he tried to watch didn't work. I thought that Williams showed why he's not good enough. Pereira showed why he's not good enough. I thought Tom Heaton was fantastic and very solid. But yeah, the same basic issues, not closing people down. And that is criminal. I'm sorry, it's just criminal. If you're not fit enough, even in pre-season, to close another player down, you shouldn't be there. It's as simple as that. You get told at Sunday League level, if somebody else has got the ball, put some pressure on him. And I just don't understand it. We had the goal that we conceded against Derby, that Kazim Richards scored. Nobody closed him down. We had the goals today. Lyndon Dykes scored 2 goals. He was awful for the Euros for Scotland. He couldn't hit a barn door. and he scored 2 against us. It just shows you how bad we were today. But yeah, the same issues again for me. As Connor said, crosses into the box. We've had it with even Maguire's struggles with his position at times. Lindelof struggled big time. Wan-Bissaka struggled. Even Shaw has. It's a coaching issue that needs sorting out. You know, you look at teams like Burnley. No matter what you think of Burnley, they do the basics right. They use what they've got. They overachieve every year. And we need to make sure that we don't underachieve with this squad that we're building, because there is a lot of promise there. But unfortunately, if you're not coached right and if you don't do the basics right, you won't get near a title. So that'll be my message taken for today. What are we, the 23rd of July or something today? I think we're on, aren't we? Let's see within a month, 2 months' time, whether these same issues are going to be occurring. Because as Connor said, it's not a player issue, it's a coaching issue. It happens with everybody. And just one point, actually, last point before we move on. Alex Tellers is out for a few weeks with an injury. So will that have a sort of an impact on Brandon Williams' future? You know, we're going to have, obviously, if Williams were to go out on loan, we've only really got Luke Shaw. And then obviously Luke Shaw's he's improved his fitness, but he can get injured quite often as well. So you may well see Brandon Williams staying, whereas maybe a week or so ago we weren't, planning on that. So that's just an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, a really poor performance today.
Yeah, can't argue with that. Well, having just to round us off on the negatives, then is there any? Well, what specifically stood out to you? Because I think we've covered all the bases here. So what were you most annoyed at or most displeased with that?
Well, I was going to go a little bit just to bring a different thought into the conversation. I know Connor and Charlie are saying it's the players and all that. I mean, it's the coaching and all that on the defensive. Honestly, I think a small part of it is also on the players in terms of a mentality thing, and not like a weak mentality, just a concentration thing, I guess is a better term than mentality. I think Wan-Bissaka is pretty good at defending, and I know his best is the one-on-one, but I don't think he is, and I understand, because defensive mistakes drive me up a wall, because a lot of it is mental, and I think that's what it is. I think there's too many times where, whether it's Wan-Bissaka on those crosses into the far post, or like Charlie said as well, sometimes it's even Maguire who makes certain mistakes. I think some of it, yes, could be coached, but I think also some of it is the mentality, and it's the concentration, it's the discipline. I think these guys at the back line sometimes get turned off, and they're not paying attention, and they get caught flat-footed, which is what happened today a lot, right? Whether it be closing down or things like that. They get caught flat-footed and they don't have a fast enough reaction time. In Wan-Bissaka's case, I think it's also a little bit of that. He knows he can make those tackles, and sometimes he tries. I don't know if he just thinks he can get there in time, which obviously isn't going to happen, or if it's a good enough cross. But yeah, that was the only thing I was going to add. I think it's a little bit of a concentration and a discipline thing as well in our defense. But that's what my biggest disappointment is. I know it's what we covered and stuff, but the defensive mistakes drive me up a wall all the time.
Yeah, James, sorry, I also agree with Hammer. I don't understand the being so absolute. A lot of the United fan base is like the total net accumulation of our problems is a coaching problem. I think that's totally false. I think it's somewhere in the middle. Yes, there are some coaching deficiencies, and they are, because they brought in specialist coach to beat the press, bring out the ball, and to do defense set pieces. But the players have responsibility there as well. And Connor, as far as the criticism, look, anyone, we're here to do that. We're here to be pundits, to criticize, speak our mind. What I'm saying is, let it match the occasion. If the match has been played at half speed, then come with your criticism half speed. Don't come with the full arsenal. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, can I just make a point as well? When I'm saying that it's more on the coach, and we've seen this with a lot of players, there's no doubt in my mind we will defend better with Luke Shaw, Maguire, let's say Varane, and Wan-Bissaka as a back four, and Henderson or whoever in goal. I'm not saying that those players are completely, we will defend better. However, we have seen, particularly that area I mentioned, that cross to the back post, particularly on Wan-Bissaka's side, a lot last season. Yeah. We're very lucky to have conceded as little goals as we did from that. But yeah, no, it's. I'm not saying it's all on the coaches. It's definitely 50-50, but we have seen it a lot.
Yeah, but I think it'd be really interesting to sort of get a peek into training and get a definite answer for it, because there is obviously going to be a mix, but it'd be interesting to see which way it sways.
Yeah, sorry, just real quick. Well, actually, that is where I would, what Connor said, where I would then say that it's more in coaching, because we have been seeing it happening a lot. At a certain point, the coaches have to be like, okay, we got to go look at some film, change some stuff in practice, and start adjusting. So that's where, yes, I would say then it's more on the coaches when they're not making the changes that need to be changed.
I totally. Go ahead, Charlie. No, go ahead, Charlie. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that one of my biggest disappointments was this problem has been going on since the start of last season, and I just wish that I don't buy the excuse that we didn't have enough time to work on it, because I don't think defending set pieces and stuff is a thing that I don't think it's a thing that maybe takes months to do. I think you can say you've got a game on a Thursday and a Sunday. We had that a lot, didn't we, with the Europa League? Obviously the players have a rest day on Friday, don't they, and train on Saturday or whatever they do. Even if you're not training on it in training, you could at least, I think they could have at least, shown the players some clips, made them more aware of it. Obviously they might have done that and I might be wrong, but obviously that was the Europa League final. In hindsight, we may have never conceded that free kick that we did, and we may have won. You know what I mean? So I think it's just something I'd have liked to have seen us sort of catch on to that a little bit quicker. They may have done and they may not have had the time to obviously carry it out, but I'm not quite sure on that excuse. I think we had the time. I just don't think we quite got hold of that quickly enough. But obviously, we've had a season refresh now. We've got a new coach in. So obviously, we've got no excuses now at all. There's no excuse now for this issue not to be resolved. It definitely is a player issue as well, by the way, though, definitely. I understand with Fred and McTominay in midfield as well. There's only so much coaching you can do with players that haven't got the technical ability to play a 10 or 20-yard pass. You know what I mean? So although, Fred and McTominay are useful players at times, I totally agree with you as well that there is only so much a manager can do, of course, with certain players.
Yeah, I think I agree with what everyone said, but I think the problem has been there for longer. And hopefully Ramsey, or whatever the name of this new specialist coach that we just we poached from Chelsea, is not just set pieces. It's really, United has had a systemic issue with flighted balls, right? The ball is in the air. We don't know. The players seem maybe indecisive what they need to be doing, what spaces they need to be marking. They can't forecast risk. They can't forecast danger zones, stuff like that. We just were kind of poor. Then obviously there's the one-on-one defending, which Lindelof is usually like a culprit, and that's usually just physical issues or just maybe a meekness or reluctance to engage physically. But so I'm with Connor. I really, really hope he starts seeing some some kind of success there.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Well, you've segued me nicely into the final part of the show. We're looking to build on the future, and obviously looking into the immediate future. We have Brentford on Wednesday. I think it's at it might be Old Trafford. I'm not sure. Who knows? It is. Yeah, there you go. Cheers. But yeah, listen, Brentford are a team. They've had 4 pre-season games already. They're a team at full strength. They've not lost many, if any, players to international duty. And as we saw last season, they're an incredible footballing team. So, Chuki, I'll come to you first. What needs to change, in whether it's personnel, tactics, or what needs to change to get a bit more of an inspired performance? Not necessarily the win. We're not looking for the result. Just something worth cheering about.
This might be bad news. They need to keep on boiling the egg till they get solid, and it might be a hard thing for fans to watch. We could win, we could lose, we could draw. We might have a shaky performance. If this 4-3-3 is where the Ali and team want to go, they need to just stick with it, regardless of what the results are. To understand, to do where are opportunities, where are strengths, what do we need to do to make sure we have a solidified plan going into the season. So that's what we need to do. Brentford, obviously, they sound like they're fitter because they played more games. And understanding dynamic with these preseason games. I actually normally like preseason games where the teams are a little bit more evenly yoked. Let's stick with the egg pun, right? I prefer like a preseason game with like what with Wolves, right? Where it gets players' attention and they're a little bit more up for it. Brentford, QPR playing us, they're more up for it. They have more to prove. They want to show. If they do anything against a position like us, it goes a longer way in the season. If it beats QPR today 3-0, it would be nice. Everyone's going to be happy. We'll be picking up the youngsters. But really, it's really not that much of an accomplishment, to be fair. I mean, I don't mean to cast, I'm not trying to belittle these teams. I'm just, speaking reality-wise. So that's what needs to be done. Preseason is to test players out. In our case, in United's case, test the systems out. Because I think we're all tired and weary of seeing the double pivot.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Well, I think just putting my 2 cents in for the next game. I think we saw today that Ollie is trying this 4-3-3 formation. We saw the basic structure of it in Matic sitting. I think Herrera was tasked with playing that sort of deeper lying shuttler role, if even a box to box. But obviously he's not suitable for that, so we can't really judge that. And then you've got Lingard in that Fernandes role where he's sort of given freedom. So Connor, if we're going to carry on with this system, do you think personnel need to change in that midfield just to really test as to whether it will work in the new season?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the players that we'd like to see, they're not going to be back for, certainly not for Brentford. Maybe I kind of wish the games were the other way around. I kind of wish Preston was before the Brentford game, and then we had Brentford, Everton, and then into the season. But yeah, I think yes, personnel needs to change, but we're not going to have that for this game on Wednesday. So if we're looking at the immediate, yes, we've got to stick at the same system, and I agree. We've got to. If Ollie wants to persist with this, you can't scrap it off after a couple of games. So yes, we need to stick with it, and it's going to be difficult anyway because Brentford play good football. It's going to be interesting with Tony up against our two centre halves because he's a bloody good player, is Ivan Tony. So does worry me, especially if it's likely. I think it's going to be pretty much the same team that started today. I don't think, unless someone can correct me, that anyone is back on top of today's squad. So it's probably going to be the same.
I think Martial and Van der Beek are back in training, but I wouldn't expect to see him in the lineup for the friendly.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of backs up my point. I kind of wish Preston was this week, midweek, and then Brentford was the game after, but can't be helped. But yeah, so it's likely going to be Matic, Lingard. I wouldn't mind seeing Lingard there again, to be honest, to the left of the three, because if he is going to have a role next season, that's probably where he's going to be. So I'm not totally against that, but it's going to be a much harder game. The players are going to have to work a lot harder than they did today. QPR pressed well today, and they were definitely the better side. Brentford are going to be even tougher. So, and like I said, they're not. QPR put 4 past us. Ivan Tony could score 4 on his own if we play like that. So it's going to be a tough game. It's a game that I think we need because obviously we need these challenges coming up to the start of the season because we know how Leeds play. So it's going to be a tough one for sure, but yeah, definitely he needs to stick with his 4-3-3 if that's what he wants to do going into the season. There's no point chopping and changing it. If I said going into Preston and Everton, we get some of the big hitters back, then you can start feeding them into the side as well. But yeah, we're just gonna have to stick with what we've got. We can't change it. But there's more than enough, or I'd hope there's enough quality in there to do a job over Brentford anyway. Especially, I was saying this to Charlie before, you need a squad of 20 odd players going into a season if you really want to compete. So these fringe players like your Lingards, Pereiras, if he's sticking around, Matic and so on, have got to prove themselves against a good opposition, i.e. Brentford, if we're going to be using them going into next season.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Well, I'll come to you, Charlie. I'm looking forward to this answer. I imagine you'll take us up to the hour mark. So what needs changing up before Wednesday in your mind?
For Wednesday, I'd just like to see a little bit more energy, James. You know what I mean? I'd just like to see, pre-season, nobody really minds it. If you lose the game, if you draw the game, if you win the game, you just want to see the players giving everything. As I said before, we've got, like, for example, the young players today. I thought Alanga played well. I thought Shuratiri was okay. But other than that, there wasn't too much sort of, if I was one of those young players, I would be sort of I'd show a bit of anger and desire. I'm going to prove Ollie today. I'm going to prove him that I'm the right player to keep, or I'm going to prove him that I deserve this loan. Or I'm going to prove this team that I should be on loan to this place. but none of them really, none of them really played with any sort of determination. And even Juan Mata, when he came on, he sort of was giving the ball away often, and his pass wasn't quite right. But for the Brentford game, I just like to see full effort. Full effort is something that you ask for every single game in every single circumstance for every single team. It doesn't matter whether you're a Sunday League team or Manchester City, Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, whoever it is. The minimum thing is full effort. And today, those players didn't give full effort for me. They didn't give full effort. They weren't trying. You could say it's a lack of fitness, but I just think it was a little bit of laziness, not closing down. That can't be a fitness thing. You have to close people down in football, even if it's pre-season. So I just want to see, firstly, show something, show some guts, show some courage on Wednesday night. And then obviously, let's hope to see a good game of football. Personally, I wouldn't play Pereira again. I just think he's woeful, honestly. I just do. I'd probably play Matic and Garner as the two. Or if you're playing a 4-3-3, Matic, Garner and Lingard, maybe. And I'd play... who else would I play? Elanga. I'd probably start Elanga. I thought he played well today. I'll start Elanga. And maybe Joe Hugill, I think Greenwood playing up front, he's not quite ready for that, in my opinion. I think Stu thinks the same. I don't think Greenwood is quite ready to play that number 9 yet. I don't think he's ready to start week in, week out for Man United. I still think that he is sort of an impact player in my eyes, Mason Greenwood. And I know people might disagree. I think the kid's a fantastic player, but I just think he is best used as an impact player because I think our best front three, he doesn't get in it for me in terms of what everybody else brings to the team, but I think he's best used as an impact player. And I think I'd start Greenwood on the right and I'd probably put Hugill up front. I just want to see something of Hugill. But obviously these players are not going to play a full game anyway, are they? So we're going to see 2 lots of 45 or a 60 and a 30, aren't we? Players playing for 60 and then rotating out for the others for 30. So I just want to see a little bit more from these lads. They're not poor players. They shouldn't be losing to QPR. They're not poor players at all. Some of them are less than average players, but people Lingard, Matic, Mata, Pellistri, Dan James, they're not poor footballers by any means. So just want to see some more really from them. And let's impose ourselves on Brentford. We should be doing that.
Yeah, fair enough. Not quite the hour mark, but you did well enough. We'll give you that. But just to round us off, Hammer, what are you looking, given the players that are available, what are you looking for on Wednesday? Because Brentford are a team that could wipe the floor with us if we played like we did today.
Well, so I think one of the things the announcers were talking about, at least on the stream that I was watching, is that we have so many defenders either just not back yet, and then Tellez picked up an injury and things like that. So it's probably going to be a similar defense, and I hope that the 2 center backs got a little kick up the ass, and quite frankly, also a little bit embarrassed by their play today, and they play a little bit better against slightly better opposition. What I'm looking forward to is actually, I kind of agree with what Charlie said for the guys up top. I want to see Elanga get a start. I think he's earned it. I think he played well. He got the goal. Could have had a couple more. Right, like that first one when he was pulling away with the speed and just had the bad touch. That would have been a nice goal because I was checking something on Twitter and I looked up and he was just pulling away from the dude and I was like, oh shit! So I got a little hype and then he had the bad touch. But I think he played well and he earned getting a start for this next preseason game. And to be honest, one of the people, and I know you guys are saying most of the people aren't really showing that, whether it's going out on loan, whether it's staying and getting an opportunity to become a rotation player in the team for this upcoming season. I think Pellestri's been one of the very few actually doing that. He's making cuts to the inside from the side that he's on. He's making some decent passes. The layoff to Lingard today. So I think Pellistri knows he's going back out on loan, but I think he has a mentality of, yeah, I'm going back out on loan, but don't forget me because I'll be coming back. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the defense to have a little more aggression and a little more strong mentality at that back line. And then I'm looking for a couple more young guys to start up front, Elanga included, and see what they can do from a starting position instead of coming off the bench.
Yeah, you raised some really good points there. I think just to round it off, I'll say all I want to see against Brentford is more Hannibal. I think he's Zidane with an afro in my mind. He's only got 10 combined minutes or something like that in the 2 friendlies. So I think we need to see more of him. I think he has the quality to make players around him better as well. So that'll be all from me. But I'll leave the floor open in case anyone has any other points to add. But if not, we'll call it a day. Yeah, I think that's about it. So massive thank you to you guys on the panel for joining me. That brings an end to a sort of uncharacteristically depressing episode on All for United, to say our recent form. But the depression will be gone by tomorrow when we have 6 drunk people on a camera for Uncut. So make sure you tune in for that. Should be a good episode. Karthik will be back with a bit more energy than I've got today. Don't worry about that. But yeah, thank you to everyone who got involved in the comments, everyone who tuned in. Be sure to like and subscribe. And as I said, we'll see you tomorrow.